Hey, we are back with another series of Right Now podcasts as we lead up to our Right Now event in Nashville this coming May. Like so many things, we've continued to evolve our flagship event throughout the years. And in the same vein, we've been able to grow our series of podcasts. And this year, I'm beyond elated to have the wonderful talents of Rob Brown joining us, joining our family of podcasts this year. For those of you within the profession, Rob is probably no stranger to you. He is the host of the Accounting Influencers podcast, amongst his many other ventures, and he'll be lending his talents from across the Atlantic Ocean to us as we extend the experience of Right Now beyond the walls of the room. Rob, I am super happy to say this. Welcome.
Thank you, Derek. I'm intrigued by how Americans put the word super in front of most things. To supersize, super excited, super happy, super stoked. So on behalf of the British and the UK contingent, I am super happy to be involved in this venture.
Well, we are rather excited to have you joining us this year, Rob. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, I qualified as a phys ed teacher, actually. And in England, because it gets cold, they give you a second subject. So in order that you're not teaching hockey or soccer on the cold playing fields of England in your 50s, they say, have a backup second subject so that you can come into the classroom in the later stages of your career and still be in education. So I chose mathematics. I was comfortable with the numbers. And actually, after I finished high school, I did take a qualification in accounting. So I am part qualified. But by a circuitous route, I ended up back in the accounting world. So after I taught for a few years in the UK and 4 years in Hong Kong at an international school teaching maths, I took a master's in HR, really, and thought, what am I good for as a teacher? What can I do outside teaching? Because honestly, Derek, I felt like I was coaching kids to pass tests. I don't know what the system is like there in the US, but there is that, isn't it? You've got GPAs and things like this and your SATs. And I just felt like I wasn't educating. So I came out, I took a master's, and I fell into a role where I started a training company. And I'm training really technically smart people, bankers, accountants, lawyers, architects, surveyors, people like that, engineers, how to sell themselves, how to be a little bit more confident, how to talk about what they do with some authority, with some enthusiasm. And that company lasted for 20 years. And I fell into accounting really because these were the people, from what I could see, that were most keen to learn, that knew that they were the gatekeepers of business. They all really, really cared. They had a wide variety of clients, and they needed to service them and look after them. They needed to develop people skills. They needed to talk up what they were doing so that people valued them more. We could talk a lot about the downward pressure on compliance fees and how that historical backward-looking focus of accountants is not really valued by today's world. And so they've had to adopt this mindset of, let's be more consultative, let's be more advisory in our role. And that needs better communication skills, better selling skills. So I found no shortage of an audience with accountants in that. And to this day, as I work almost exclusively with accountants and accounting firms and networks, I see a profession that is standing on a pivot point right now, with so many challenges that you will speak about, I'm sure, but so many opportunities, but we need to tell a better story. There's so many good things going on, but we don't big it up enough, do we? So I probably hit a lot there with your question.
Well, that's it's actually a great segue into what was going to be my next question, but you've begun to answer it a little bit. So, one of the things that I have the pleasure or the responsibility, depending on how you want to phrase it, as we lead into the Right Now event, is I get a chance to interview a lot of the industry support. So let's call it the vendors, the software makers, et cetera, who are supporting this profession. And that's awesome. We have a ton of views and opinions and thought leadership that comes from that aspect of the industry. But you are speaking more to the professionals, the practitioners. Is that what we can expect from your series as we move forward?
Yes, very much so. They are the audience, aren't they? My Accounting Influencers podcast is geared towards professionals in practice that need to be more influential in their roles. And that brings with it a whole load of benefits. But when you're more authoritative, when you've got a voice, you're more relevant, you can garner the culture, you can shape your team a lot more, you can get more change executed. So there's a whole lot of benefits. So we will take pieces of the news like private equity or AI or the return to office mandates or whatever's going on and this is how you can apply it in your role. So accounting people, we know they can learn. They're very coachable. They've taken really arduous exams to get to where they need to be. And so they're very proficient in that regard. But we know that the skills that got them here, technical skills, are just an entrance to the game. They need to have selling skills, presenting skills, persuasive skills, technology skills, advising skills, questioning skills, and a whole load more. So we're asking a lot of them. But yeah, I'm on their side. And I want to help them be better in their roles so they can affect more change. And the big part of it really is getting accountants themselves to tell a better story about the great stuff that they do. Because have you heard of that phrase, proximity bias, where you get so close to what you do, you don't see it as remarkable? Accountants do an amazing job, but it seems quite mundane to them at times. And so when people ask them what they do, they're almost apologetic that they are a CPA. So they could tell a better story. We could all tell a better story about accounting because we know it's struggling to recruit people. And we know that 75% of CPAs are at or close to retirement age. So what's going to happen there? Let's sing out for the accountants. They are the superheroes without capes in many respects. And goodness, Stuart, throughout the pandemic, weren't they the people that were keeping the lights on for all of us?
Yep, they were absolutely part of what we would consider the essential services. You mentioned there that table stakes, almost being able to do the job.
Yeah.
Focusing specifically on the accountancy, being able to do the job is table stakes. You have to be able to do that just to stay in business. But I think what you're driving at is that in order to elevate yourself, in order to progress, to move forwards, to take that next leap to whatever it is you want to do in your career, with your firm, with your business, etc., you really have to be able to tell a story. You really have to be able to be in the room and have a presence in the room, whether it's a digital room or a physical room where everybody's sitting around together. Would you say that that's a fair assessment?
It is, but not all accountants want that. Let's be clear. There are some people that just love getting their head down in a dark room with a spreadsheet and crunching the numbers, and that's what really drives them. And good luck to them. They don't want a personal brand. They don't want to put out thought leadership. They don't want to be an ambassador for their firm. They just want to look after the clients and get the job done. And accounting attracts people like that, and that's fine. However, there is a cohort that have responsibility, particularly in leadership roles, to be ambassadors for the brand of accounting because they recruit, they're responsible for growth in a firm, and it's up to them to be telling the better stories. So that's why I'm really excited about Rightworks and the Right Now event he's doing, because this is a flag in the ground to say we're supporting accountants, but not just with a one-off event that might have some short-term impact, but as an experience, as a community, as a year-round engagement that creates long-term sustainable behavioral change and plugs CPAs into a community where they can identify with people like them that are going through their struggles, because it can be quite lonely, and giving them a program of education and inspiration with its many facets. We're doing some speed networking events too. So we're bringing people together before and after the event to say, hey, look, you can do this by yourself, but you can't do it alone, if that makes sense. So exciting stuff with Right Now 2025. And the profession generally has a real opportunity to upgrade here and tell a better story for the good of everybody.
Yeah, one of the things that we like to say, sort of an unofficial mission statement within Rightworks and community is we want to elevate the profession.
Yes, it is great that you are shining a light on it, amplifying it, and bringing it to life for the people out there that will be not just the speakers, but the audience, the punters, the delegates, that they feel part of it. Because don't we just want to be part of something bigger than ourselves? We don't just want to go up to an event, see something, chop the top of our head off, put loads of information in it, sew it back up again and leave. That's not what we're about these days. The events game is changing. You've been on a bonus podcast I did recently, and we talked about that you've got to produce a more holistic experience for people. So right now, 2025 is right on with that. And I love how you're evolving and pioneering, really, the event space for CPAs, because goodness, they need it. But they're also super busy people. There, I've got your super in front of that, but they're extremely busy people. Why should they take the time? And you're giving them plenty of reasons to show up.
Yeah, we really want to extend the experience beyond the conference walls, as we've said.
Yeah.
We want to make this not only an annual event, but something that is continuous throughout the year. Not only the information that you digest and take home and then hopefully put into practice, but also podcasts, also interviews, articles, actions that you can literally take that would not be able to take were you not in the room for that conference. So on that question, we live in a society, you're on the other side of the Atlantic right now. We had a little conversation pre-recording about the difference in time zones and daylight savings, etc. Why is it so important to have live events and to be able to attend live events, in-person events in today's day and age where literally I could talk to somebody on the other side of the world as if you're sitting in the room with me?
You can. And the pandemic showed us that it's possible. I wonder what would have happened if the pandemic had taken place in 1980, where there was no technology, no Teams, no Zoom. There was fax machines. There wasn't email. Pardon me. So why do we need live events? Well, it's kind of old school, but you can't beat looking into the whites of someone's eyes and shaking their hands and giving them a hug. There's a certain intimacy about that, and that might be scaring a few accounting types. But it's a bit like saying, I can watch the live football game on television, and you'll probably get a much better view, and you'll get the slow motion replays and the analysis and everything else. But what don't you get? You don't get the energy. You don't get the vibe. And you don't get those impromptu conversations, because while it's going on, your Right Now delegates will be talking to each other about what happened on the stage half an hour ago. You don't get that if you are watching from afar or watching a recording. It's like going up to the top of a mountain and seeing a great view, but not being able to talk about it to anyone. You can take a picture of it with your phone or a camera, but when you're in the middle of it, rubbing shoulders with somebody, you get immediate feedback and you're bouncing ideas off. And so much of what happens at a conference like Right Now is impromptu. It's not planned, is it? It's not scoped out. It's not expected. It's those serendipitous moments that really make a conference. And you ask most people what their memories are of an event like yours, you might get one or two of them call out a great speech. And I challenge them and say, well, what was it about the speech? Was the one quote? Was the one thing? And they can't often remember. No disrespect to the speakers. But it is the overall experience. It's how it made them feel. It's the friends that they made. It's the conversations that they had. And remember, with the conference, you've got speakers talking to an audience. There's no talking going on apart from one person there. So a lot of the engagement and the memories come from when people are talking to each other in the breaks and over the refreshments and in the sleeves rolled up master classes and seminars and focus groups and things like that. That's when the real work gets done. That's where the real relationships get built. So yes, it's old fashioned, and you have got to perhaps jump on a plane and get to Nashville and make the effort and book your hotel and everything else. But like the big game, there's no substitute for being in the room.
I love the way you put it. That's where the real action, that's where the real work, real relationships are made. So, yep, call to action to everybody. If you haven't booked already, please make sure to book your tickets, book your flights, book your hotel rooms. We'd love to see you in Nashville in May.
And do you know Rob, what? There's a phenomenon of, they say commitment is doing what you say you will do when you say you'll do it, whether you feel like it or not. And I'm just reminded of that example where if somebody says to you, Derek, we got a party on Saturday night, do you want to come along? And in the moment, your answer is, yeah, sure, I'll be there. That sounds great. But when Saturday afternoon comes along and you've had a tough week of work and you've been with your kids or you've done whatever on a Saturday, the last thing you might feel like doing is going out on that Saturday night, but you made the commitment. So I often say to people, we're talking to you now and you're excited about Right Now 2025, and you have all the intentions in the world of buying your ticket and getting on the plane and everything else. But when that time comes closer, you're going to get busy. You're going to have commitments. Things are going to be thrown at you, and you're going to have plenty of valid excuses not to go. So we want to see you there. But on top of that, we would say don't let yourself down by falling prey to that. Really commit, put it in your calendar, put a circle around it, and guard that with your life, because this is going to be, it's one of the go-to events of the year, Derek, isn't it? And you go to a lot of conferences.
I go to a lot, and I always feel better coming home from them. I've posted about this before. There's that, even when you're in the room, even when you know you should be there, you wind up with that trepidation. There's, whether it's imposter syndrome or whatever you want to say. But man, when I come home from those conferences, those in-person events, it is just a totally different energy. And you're exactly right. The chopping off the head, filling it with information, sewing it right back up is good. But it's the energy, the commitment that comes out of having been there, talked to someone, followed up with them, or they followed up with me, held me accountable for what I asked them to do. That's where the real change occurs.
Well, let's add a dimension to that too, because you're right. There is an element of learning. Because accountants, they need to stay current, they need to stay relevant, they need to stay up to date. Technically, and from a regulation perspective, absolutely, tax laws are changing all the time. However, there is another body of knowledge that's coming at them in waves around technology, around private equity, around new skills and selling and pitching and advisory and CAS and whatever you want to call it. There's so much out there that they need to know. And where do they go for that? You can go online and do a bit of CPD. You can do a webinar, but you're still you in your office. So the lineup you've got at Right Now 2025 is very exciting, because that's been handpicked from the best in the business to give people stuff that, whilst they could get somewhere else, they'd never get it all in one place. And they're going to be in such a learning environment where everyone's soaking stuff up. And that is a place where you can get a year's worth of learning over 2 or 3 days. And that seems like a great use of your time to me.
100% agreed. You couldn't sell it better, Rob. Thank you very much. Rob, on that note, I just want to say thank you again for your time. Really, also, thank you tremendously for joining forces with us this year as we continue to expand the experience beyond the walls. Any last thoughts or closing comments?
Sure. I'm pleased that Rightworks and Right Now are embracing, I mean, it's Rob Brown. I'm over in the UK, so you might think, what has an English guy got to do with this? But there's a certain international feel about the world right now. Barriers are coming down, and despite what Trump's doing and saying, and we are a global marketplace. So to get a different voice in there, I've been really well accepted with my funny accent, and to just bring some different perspective and a different way of looking at things. That's the whole Right Now way, isn't it? You are, despite the sunsetting of DEI initiatives globally, you are including all kinds of interesting people from all kinds of different backgrounds. And it's a joy what you're doing to bring all of these people together for something that will be really, really special. So kudos to you and your team for doing that. I'm just thrilled to be a part of it and contribute to some of those conversations, do some of the interviews, talk to the speakers, coordinate some of these speed networking events to bring the community together and show them what it means to be in the Right Now community.
Well, we love it, Rob, and we are so blessed and thankful to have your talents with us this year.
Amen. Thank you, Derek.